Hello, good evening or good morning, wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome to your Double or Nothing edition of the Wrestling Inc. podcast. I am your host for this evening, the content machine, Liam Crowley, and I'm joined by two familiar faces today. First, to my left, the man in charge, Wrestling Inc. founder and owner, Raj Giri. Rare form, Raj. We got him here tonight. Raj, how are you doing?
I've got the need for some McAllen.
I like
I'm
the
doing
reference.
good. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I love the reference because I just saw Top Gun Maverick this morning and I was buzzing. It's been a great day of entertainment overall for me, from the AM to the PM, or from the AM to the AM here on the East Coast.
After a 17-hour pay-per-view.
After a 17-hour pay-per-view, indeed. We're not just joined by Raj tonight, though. Next to my right, a Wrestling Inc. podcast regular, New York City's Demon Diva, Issa. Issa, great to be back on the mic with you as always.
So excited to be talking some AEW Double or Nothing with you guys. I did a 5-hour watch along on my YouTube channel. I'm ready to keep going.
You have been doing live streams all night long, and hopefully we'll keep this one to around 60 to 70 minutes. We won't keep you all here too long, but we're going to skip the news portion of this podcast just because there are so many matches to get into here tonight. 13 total matches, as well as some backstage segments that had big implications moving forward with AEW programming. So
and when you say that, we're not skipping the news. We're just like the MJF stuff is obviously what a lot of people want to hear about. We're not doing it at the beginning, but we're getting into it right away.
Oh, of course. Don't you worry. MJF news coming up in just a second. But before we get into that match, which kicked off the show, we'll start things off with the buy-in. Hookhausen, the team of Hook and Danhausen, defeating Tony Nese and Mark Sterling. Issa, I'll go to you first with this one. How do we feel about this little pre-show match? Did you enjoy the comedy aspects? Did this start the pay-per-view in the right direction for you?
I did. I thought it was fun. I thought this was the lock of the century. I think everybody going into this knew that Hook and Danhausen were going to take the win. I had fun. It was a fun little pre-show buy-in match, and I want to see what they do next with Hook and Danhausen. Are they sticking together? Are they going to separate them? That's what I'm more curious about in regards to this match.
Raj, how about you?
So I didn't watch this match. I got back after.
Keeping it real.
Playing golf here. But I do like the fact, AEW's roster is getting so bloated. It's huge. It's gigantic. They have everyone they could do anything with, and the fact that they're able to get on the pay-per-view buy-in, I think it just shows a lot for the confidence that they have.
Yeah, I completely agree. I enjoyed this match for the most part. I like Hook getting some pay-per-view spotlight, even if it is coming on the pre-show and not the main card itself. And I'll be completely honest, I still don't understand Danhausen. I know he's got the cult following. He gets a crazy big pop. But I don't understand the appeal. But hey, if the fans are into it, why not push him to the moon? And having him paired with Hook, I think it's a good excuse to get them both on TV time. When AEW is so dominated by factions and groups, get these two solo acts together so at least they can get more time on Rampage and Dynamite.
Yeah, I don't get Danhausen either. Is he a magician? Like, what's the gimmick? They never really explain it, and they assume like everyone has been following Danhausen for from ROH and knows his whole shtick. But we've interviewed him on the side. I don't really know what his thing is. So,
either way.
You gotta give him props though. I never watched the man wrestle, but I knew who he was before he came into AEW, which I think goes to tell you the pull that he have on those social media fans. And I will tell you one thing. I saw him at WrestleCon and he was like right in front of me, and all I could do was, "Don't curse me." And he just started laughing because he looked at me like, "You're a grown woman."
So is that his thing? He curses people? Is that the shtick? But does he actually do it? Like, are there people in ROH saying,
well, I will say one thing. I'm not trying to like do a flex here on the podcast, but he says, "No, you're fine." And so far, my life has been okay. So I don't think I got cursed.
So if everything's good with you, Issa, I think we're good on this pre-show. We'll move into the main card, the main show overall. 12 matches on this card over the course of what felt like, I believe, 4.5 hours total. And we start with the money matchup, the one that everyone has been talking about for the past 48 hours, because that man, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, just knows how to create buzz, either intentionally or by accident. Just to run down the timeline of events for those who are unaware of what went down with MJF this past weekend. He no-showed his meet and greet at AEW FanFest on Saturday. That was followed by a report that he had booked himself a flight out of Las Vegas, or at least a flight was booked in his name. We don't know if he was the one to book it himself. As of Sunday morning, reports circulated that he didn't board said flight, but as of 3:15, I believe Eastern time, on the day of the pay-per-view, no one had spotted him backstage. Everyone was like, is this match actually going to happen? AEW was advertising MJF versus Wardlow in the morning. Those posts were taken down by the afternoon. Then eventually word got out that this match would kick off the show. His music hits. We wait for about 20 to 30 seconds. He eventually makes his way to the ring, hits the ring, does his whole pose, and then hits a little airplane motion as a nod to the rumors and rumblings leading up to this match. Before we get into the actual results, Raj, I just want to get your thoughts on what happened with MJF this past weekend. Is it a work? Is it a shoot? Is it a work shoot, brother? How are we feeling about Maxwell Jacob Friedman?
So, as I mentioned, I was playing golf earlier today. First day I got out for the last 6 weeks. COVID got in the way, or snow. So I've been wanting to get out. Finally today I got out. I texted this guy with AEW asking about it. Third hole, as I'm about to drive, he texts me back and ranted my drive sucked. But he was like, no, it's all true. He's like, that's legit. Like this isn't a work. I don't believe that. There is a part of me, and I'm not one of those that's like, oh, everything's a work, because I'm not. I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, real shit happens in wrestling. Sasha and Naomi, that was all real. It's not a work. The WWE, it's not like this is leading to some gigantic women's tag team title match. This is real. Real shit happens in wrestling. But this is one of those, because it's MJF. If it was, Hangman Page or anyone else, then I'd be like, oh, yeah, this is completely legit. But I was told by someone in AEW, this is 100% legit. But the fact that MJF was there tonight, there's a Brian Pillman thing that I just feel like there is something that's not completely on the level, if that makes sense.
Something doesn't add up for sure. Issa, what were your thoughts on this whole situation?
Listen, NJF is my favorite act in AEW. I've been very vocal about how much I admire what he does, and his place in the card as a top heel. And I always feel like the best built feuds going into the pay-per-views are always MJF. But if you really think about it, when he showed up tonight, then the only news story here that's real and official is that he no-showed that FanFest. And that you're messing with fans' money. Fans are paying money. I'm very vocal about fans. Like, don't be that creep at the hotel lobby or at the airport. Go to the advertised signings if you want to meet your favorites. So in that aspect of things, I don't like that move. But I don't know how unhappy he is. I'm glad he showed up and did the job for Wardlow, which we'll get into. But at the same time, it didn't feel like it was Wardlow's big crowning moment as it should have felt, because it felt all about MJF and the drama going on behind the scenes, and it should have felt like a bigger deal for Wardlow, and it didn't feel that way.
I do got to say this too, with MJF, you still got like 2 years left on your contract. If you're being unprofessional now, I would think that other companies would have reservations if you're a year and a half away from your contract ending and you're being difficult to work with. So I don't know. It just seems like he's a smart guy. I can't see him jeopardizing his future and things like that. So that's my personal opinion. Something's fishy.
Something's fishy, and it's got us all talking. I do agree, Issa, that I felt like it took away some of the momentum of the match itself. But before we get to the match itself, we have our first super chat of the night. Thank you so much, Ralph the Ace. He said, I might be in the minority, but this show was meh to me and felt long. I just popped open the Balvenie. Cheers, guys.
Balvenie, Liam.
Oh my God, I'm
Cheers,
exposing my
cheers, Ralph the
youth.
Ace. I got some McAllen. Cheers, brother.
I'm exposing my youth with the lack of pronunciation.
He's
there.
like, I got my key ice.
I'm sure we'll get to the overall grades by the end of the show, but a little teaser for that. I do kind of agree. I didn't feel as in love with this show as I have felt about past AEW shows. Most of them are Grand Slam for me, and I never regret paying the $50. This one, a little bit more hesitant by the match's end, but let's get to the result of that match that we were talking about. Wardlow defeats MJF by pinfall after 10 power bombs, a power bomb symphony. The crowd was going crazy. They were hitting him with the "You deserve it" chants, both to Wardlow getting the AEW contract and MJF getting the very poorly done stretcher job. I'm sure you all saw the oxygen mask that was going over his forehead. Raj, I'll go to you first on this one. How did you feel about the execution of this feud storyline that's been building arguably for 3 full years?
I agree with what Issa said earlier. I felt like the outside drama took away from it. Like, this was not Batista beating Triple H. It was we're waiting to see if MJF showed us up and is being professional. And he was, overall, he did what he was supposed to. Leaving the show, Wardlow was not on my mind. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a crowning achievement, but overall, I thought the match was what it should have been. Wardlow looked like a monster. He looked great. MJF did what he was supposed to do. But it wasn't that superstar making night yet. And I think it could be that in Wednesday. You put him in the main event position, him destroying. Gosh, who? The Young Bucks. I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone higher up, but it didn't feel like it was that passing of the torch yet.
Yeah, I completely agree. Issa, I'd love for you to expand on your point from earlier. Why did this feel off to you? Was it the flow of the match, or was it the outside politics that were just on your minds?
It was definitely the outside politics. And going into the match, I'm sitting here thinking, was this supposed to be a squash from the get-go? Is MJF being punished for his actions? Like, there was a lot of me just overthinking what was happening instead of just taking it for the moment. Wardlow looked great. He always does, if you know what I mean. Okay, just pointing that out there. Wardlow is great. Great addition to AEW. Should be in the main event scene. But I couldn't help but to think, like, is MJF really unhappy? They're stretching him out. Is he gonna be off of television? I could not. Really, I when I saw the Wardlow All Elite graphic, I did had a little bit of a moment where, like, okay, he deserves it, right? But the entire time I was just thinking of the backstage drama and everything going on with MJF, and I just wish that this would have been a bigger moment for Wardlow, because I do think he deserves it. And this is a storyline that has been going on for years. I know that we planted the seed at Revolution, but this is years in the making, and it just should have been like such a bigger deal. I also maybe don't know that I agree with it opening the show. I get it, because it's like, okay, everybody's talking about it, let's get it out of the way and move on with the show. But at the same time, it opening the show, it kind of messed up the flow of things, and we'll get into that after we discuss everything, which, I think the pacing of it was a bit odd. But overall, it just should have felt like a bigger moment for Wardlow, and because of the backstage politics, it didn't.
There's so much you said there that I want to go off of too, because as you mentioned, I don't think the flow of the match was the issue. It's the fact that when you mix the flow of the match with the backstage politics, it makes you view it in a completely different lens. And I think of MJF's facial expression when he walks out. Every single week on Dynamite, he has a mean mug on his face, and we don't think anything of it. But this particular mean mug, I'm like, he's upset about the backstage politics. On top of that, too, when he got the stretcher job at the end, I'm like, are they writing him off TV? Is that what's happening right now? There's so many different lenses that we look at it because of the backstage politics that I really don't think anything changes in terms of the flow of the match, in terms of enjoyments. But at the same time, when you mix in the whole rumors and situation, it does kind of bug me a little bit. And also, too, I look at the match taking place to open the show, and I wonder, did that happen so MJF could just get out of Las Vegas as soon as possible and hop on a flight and not stick around for the rest of the show? I'm sure a report will come out about whether or not he stayed backstage at some point in the coming days, because he's just the hottest thing going right now in terms of the news cycle. Everyone wants to know about MJF, and like Issa said, I feel like in the wrong way, because in the buy-in, Eddie Kingston cut an incredible promo that immediately elevated my stock for the Anarchy in the Arena match, a match I really didn't care about beforehand, and I was like, that's how you get on my radar. MJF doing this kind of shady stuff to make his match elevated more. It was already like one of my most anticipated matches going in. I don't think it needed that extra layer. Raj, anything I'm saying here, am I crazy for thinking any of these, or were you sharing similar thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. I'm with you totally.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I wonder if we didn't get the backstage drama, if this was the way the match was supposed to go, it would have been such a humongous moment for Wardlow to just come in and squash MJF, because we've seen MJF put on some incredible matches in the last few pay-per-views. So, I wish this is the one time that I wish we would have not gotten all of that in our ears before watching the match.
Do you think everything was 100% a shoot with MJF?
No.
I don't know. I really don't know. It's really hard to tell. I wonder, I put it on Twitter earlier today, but my dream for this whole thing is for it to culminate in a Money in the Bank 2011 style match between MJF and CM Punk. MJF in the CM Punk role and CM Punk in the John Cena role. MJF saying, I'm going to beat you for the title and I'm going to leave. And instead of you leaving WWE, I'm going to leave and go to WWE. And I think that is a storyline that if it's going to work in 2022, it needs to be very protected, like inner circle. Tony Khan, MJF, and whoever he's facing are the only ones that know about it. Because the internet is just, it's a wildfire at this point. That's what I want to believe. That's my headcanon. But I read too much wrestling news to not believe that most of this was a shoot. You know what I mean?
I think they want it to be presented as real. But again, MJF, he's not Roddy Piper, where he's been a gigantic star going back and forth, where he can command this attention, right?
Yeah.
He's been a big star for the last year and a half. Because if he has really gotten that big of a head already, then that's a cause for concern.
Yeah, my train of thought, I tweeted it out like Liam said this morning, where I was like, okay, I slept on this. And once again, I made this point earlier. The only news cycle here is that he no-showed fans pay money to meet him, and he no-showed that, and that's just not cool.
And did they pay? I forget how this exactly works. Did they pay specifically for him, or was it like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a bundle. You get to go into AEW Fan Fest, and they have a couple of wrestlers that you can meet for free, included in just the entrance, but then you pay extra to meet certain wrestlers. MJF was part of the people that you have to pay extra to meet.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Before we move on to our next match, we have another super chat from Sheed Black, who says, I'm drinking Casamigos, Don Julio, and Patron Tequila. I hope I pronounced all those correctly. In spurts with simply raspberry lemonade. On another note, Bleacher Report is terrible. I can echo those sentiments. My feed
do
cut
not
out.
Get me started with, I have Fight TV, and it was a hot mess all night for me as well. So Tony Khan.
You said Fight.
I have Fight, and it was a mess. So I just want to tell everybody, like Tony Khan, forget about dinners with Dana White. Get a streaming service already, because this whole thing was a mess. And yeah, Peacock is not perfect, but I don't struggle through a pay-per-view like I did tonight with Fight TV. And I am hearing, like Liam said, Bleacher Report was not that much better either.
It was fine for me. I had no issues.
It was fine.
I watched the whole thing.
It was fine for the whole show up until the main event. The one match I really cared about, it cut out like 3 times. It was a little frustrating. But let's move on to our next match.
It froze on me right before the ending, like right before CM Punk won. Come on.
I feel for you, Issa. But let's move on to our next match.
Should we mention at some point the tweet that Tony Khan made about WWE, and I made a tweet back.
Oh, the Dana White thing?
Yes. And then Tony Khan was DMing me last night about it. It was funny.
Because you took the little dig, right?
I took a little dig. Tony Khan gave WWE crap for running a pay-per-view on UFC Fight Week. I think that was WWE's strategy, was that it's a busy week. The UFC event's going to have 15,000 people. You take out a lot of excess and you give them a show to go to. So the strategy, I don't think, was opposing UFC as I think it was to take that audience. And anyway, it didn't work out.
Nobody shows up to the UFC shows onto the main card. Like, nobody shows up for those pre-fights. Like, nobody does. And to your point, SummerSlam was the same night of a huge boxing match. I can't recall the top of my drunk head. Yes, it was the same freaking night. They did the exact same strategy for SummerSlam. So WWE knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth trying it. My thing, the reason why I think it didn't work out is because they haven't made Money in the Bank feel like a Royal Rumble or SummerSlam.
I think it's because you have 2 stadium shows on the same month, right? So both of these shows require fans to travel. I think SummerSlam, like you said, has a bigger name value. So if I'm looking at, I'm going to travel to one of these shows, which one am I going to go to? Nashville is a cheaper city with a bigger name brand event. I'm going to pick SummerSlam, screw Money in the Bank. Like, you're doing 2 stadium shows, July 2nd and July 30th. As soon as they announced that, I was like, this is way off. You can't do 2 stadium shows that close together because you're making your fans pick a side.
But I do think that Money in the Bank is not quite there yet. I feel like if it was SummerSlam, like, it would have been a different story, because we saw it last year. But so I just made a little joke, like, okay, well,
I made a little joke too. He didn't DM me though.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, yeah, WWE did that, but you also are running, Double or Nothing on the weekend when you have the NBA finals or the conference finals. And so, I just said that, like, being tongue in cheek. It wasn't meant to be like, you need to reschedule Double or Nothing. And this is, it was just like,
I think your joke was actually more innocent than mine, because my little joke was, where was Tony Khan having dinner with Dana White when he's telling it's no showing fan fest? Like, maybe you should realize what your priorities are.
Yeah.
I will say it's a valid complaint too, because as a Boston native, I tuned out for the match that everyone was raving about on Twitter, Anarchy in the Arena. I had to watch the 4th quarter to make sure the Celtics got the job done.
But there was still a long chunk of Anarchy in the Arena after the game ended, because I was doing updates on my live stream of both teams going on.
Yeah.
And Andrew Ung sends in a super chat. He says the arena match was crazy.
Yes.
I was there live, had no idea what was going on, but it was amazing to watch, especially with the Wild Thing playing in the background. I'm sure we're going to get to that in depth.
We'll get to that. I like Wild Thing for a while, and then it's like, let's turn this fucking song off.
I feel the same. Another thing I felt the same, Raj, on your Twitter timeline, as you were in so many of my tweets on my timeline, was your thoughts on the Hardy Boys Young Bucks match, because it was touted as a modern day dream match. And for 90% of it, it just felt like a standard tag match on Dynamite. Towards the end, it did start to pick up steam. It eventually ended with the Hardys going over. It did get those "this is awesome" chants eventually, but it did take a while. Raj, I would love to get your thoughts on Hardy's Young Bucks. Did you catch the time they fought? I believe it was at Supercard of Honor in 2017, right before the Hardys, right? The day before the Hardys debuted at Mania. They were able to keep it all a secret. If you saw that match in 2017, how did this one compare?
So I saw it so long ago that, and it's one of those that I look at stuff at, with the environment where it's at. It's to me, a dream match, just, like 2 people, Ricochet and Will Ospreay. It's not a dream match, but you do it in the right environment and whatever, then it can be. The Hardys and the Young Bucks and ROH, that's not a dream match. But doing it in this kind of environment, it can be. I mean, it's 2 of the greatest tag teams of all time. The modern greatest between them. To me, the Usos are up there as well. And the New Day. And to do that match, and they really didn't build it up that much. It looks like it was announced last week, right? So the build kind of sucked. It just felt like something that if I told you 3 months ago they're going to do the Hardys versus Young Bucks, that's like a pay-per-view main event. And it just never got to that big match feel. It was just kind of like, oh, this is another match on the show. And I just felt like, and the actual match itself, Jeff Hardy, I don't know what's going on. He looks like shit.
He did have his boot come undone for a large portion of the match. That's the one area I'll give him slack. He was losing his balance. I'm like, what is going on? And then I saw his boot was wide open. Okay.
But I don't feel like he's looked good in AEW so far. Like he has his moments, you know, he's super talented. Obviously, he can pull out spectacular moves and everything, but I just feel like he has not been looking like the Jeff Hardy that you want. And right. You know, when WWE released him, and I was like, what are you thinking? There's all this, you know, all these dream matches that are going to happen in AEW, and I'm watching him, I'm like, I don't see that happening now. And
I mean, they're rushing a lot of these matches too. I felt like him and Darby could have also been on a pay-per-view, and they kind of put it in that in the main event of that episode, kind of like very last second. And I was like, what are we doing here? Like, are we just trying to get all these Jeff Hardy matches out of the way? Because, you know, there was 3 matches for Jeff Hardy, you know, when he came to AEW, but they don't feel like they're building them. And this match, too long. I mean, I get the booth part. Liam, I saw that on Twitter because I didn't realize it. The match went on for way too long. Now, to be positive about it, you know how you said that Eddie Kingston got you into the match just watching the buy-in? The segment on Rampage, the Young Bucks coming out of the Hardys, it bumped this match so much higher than what I needed. They did what they had to with a crappy build to make sure that you knew this match was happening. But I thought the match could have been short, like could have been cut at least 7. I mean, they got like 19 minutes and something seconds here. It went on too long, and it picked up towards the end, but you were just waiting for it to pick up and end.
And Matt Hardy now, gosh, I might get shit for this, but he looks like a crazy lady in that old Hardy's gear. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't look good in that gear. Jeff Hardy can pull it off because he's got the makeup and everything. But Matt Hardy, he looks like, you know, someone with a bunch of cats.
The Young Bucks look better in the Hardys gear than the Hardys.
They just look bad. I hope they drop this soon.
I echo a lot of what you guys are saying about this match. One of my biggest issues with it was what I felt about a lot of the matches on this card, and that's why I think Double or Nothing kind of stumbled compared to past AEW pay-per-views. I felt like a lot of these matches, and this one in particular, was an excuse to get some of their main attractions on the card. Hardys versus Young Bucks on paper is a dream match, but the build was so rushed, and it was like, you know, the Young Bucks are one of those acts where they're going to want to be on every AEW pay-per-view because they obviously helped found the company, but also because they're a selling point on a poster. When it comes to tag matching and building feuds without having titles involved, it felt like, oh, who can we put against the Young Bucks that people are going to go towards? Probably the Hardy Boys. That's how I can't
stop picturing Matt Hardy with a bunch of cats. I'm
sorry. I was like, did I make a funny comment? No,
I just like my brain works that way.
Yeah, this match.
I'm never gonna be able to unsee it. Thanks a lot, Raj.
Someone on Twitter. I need a Photoshop.
Oh, no. Matt Hardy with a bunch. He might hear this too. Oh, geez. Yeah, I love you, Matt. I'm just saying this look is not.
It's
not good.
I was on my stream and I was asking everybody like, which one is your favorite Hardy? And I was like the only one in my entire stream that was Team Matt. Everybody was like, Jeff. I'm like, Matt is my favorite Hardy. Like, why is there no Matt lovers here? So I love Matt Hardy, but
Matt
the whole visual is not gonna win. I might have dreams or nightmare about this tonight.
We all love Matt Hardy here.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, for them to be where they are this many years later, but he looks like he's throwing cats around.
Either way, where the Hardys go from here, after a big victory, you got to figure they're going to work their way up the rankings. Maybe a tag title match is in their future. And speaking of title matches, as we move along down this card, Jade Cargill defending her TBS championship against Anna Jay, a match that went longer than I was expecting. And towards the end, we did get some storyline implications. Mark Sterling messed up. did the old classic. I was too young. I wasn't even alive when the baton got thrown and Rock intercepted it from Big Boss Man, whatever pay-per-view that was. I remember playing it on WWE 13 when we did the Attitude Era Universe mode or whatever that was. But anyways, Mark Sterling tossed the crutch into the ring. Jay got it instead. This led to Stokely Hathaway making his AEW debut, looking to be like Jade Cargill's new manager. And what's interesting about this is I want to pull up a quote that Stokely Hathaway, the former Malcolm Bivens, said just a couple weeks ago on May 6th. He said, is this it for you? Is this as far as it goes for professional wrestling? And he said, as for now, I have to say yes. But will I come back? Maybe for the right price. Well, I guess the right price arrived in just a couple of weeks because he is now in AEW, aligned with Jade Cargill and the Baddies section, but not aligned with them is someone who joined forces with Anna Jay and Chris Statlander after the match. The debuting Athena, former Ember Moon, the fallen goddess, is in AEW after much speculation and fanfare. She has arrived and is a big asset to a rapidly growing women's division. Raj, I'll go to you first for this one. How are we feeling about the title match itself, but also the storyline implications that happened after the bell?
And real quick, so some people in the chat, we got your super chats. It doesn't mean we haven't gotten to them. We're going to get to them. So just so you know. So I think, look, I look at Jade. I'm going to get canceled after tonight for sure. But here we go. Jade just, oh my God, she's just amazing. She has the look. She looks like a Marvel superhero. She just pops like off the screen. She reminds me of like Sid Vicious back in the day. Like you look at him, he just pops off the screen, and she has that just amazing. And so I thought her beating Anna Jay has a bunch of charisma and everything, but Jade's another level of star.
Yeah.
And seeing her, and I'm just like, man, I see why AEW is pushing her the way they are. I could see WWE wanting her, and if they got her, I could see them, putting her in that Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey realm. Mm-hmm. She's amazing. She might not be, Dean Malenko in the ring, but you don't need to be. I'd rather watch Jade Cargill than Dean Malenko personally. So I think she's doing awesome. And I thought this, the ending of the match I thought was a mess with bringing Malcolm Bivens in. I'm forget what was his old name again?
His new name, his name on the indies is Stokely Hathaway. And then bringing Athena in, and it just kind of like by the end, you don't remember anyone. Like they did too much. If it was Athena coming in, taking out Jade Cargill, boom, you got something. By doing all this shit, it was just kind of like, what happened? Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah.
Isa, I saw you pop for Stokely Hathaway when I mentioned his name. How do we feel?
Love seeing him, but I'm gonna. Listen, I love Jade too. I do. I think she's incredible. I love watching. I want to see her squash bitches. I'm sorry for my language, but I just want to see her come out there and destroy these girls in like 2 minutes because she looks like she can. The match was horrible. The match was bad. And the ending made up for what the match itself was. It was sloppy. It was bad. I have notes. By the way, my note for the Young Bucks is I'm bored. And for this, I wrote botch. Oh my God, that's awesome. Because I was very happy to see formerly known as Malcolm Bivens here. At the same time, it's like I was rooting for possibly Chris Statlander to be the one. Now you kind of brought out Athena as well. So now it's just like, which direction are we going with here? I like that because for a long time, I feel like Jay had no competition. This match didn't even need to be in this card. Let's just be real. This match was added to have Jade in the pay-per-view, which I'm perfectly okay with because if I had Jade in my roster, I'm going to put her in the pay-per-view. But this match didn't need to happen. There's a lot of matches tonight that I couldn't live without. I'm excited to see what the competition holds for her. But if she's not there yet, like Raj said, in the ring, then put her in the ring against people that can hide those weaknesses and kind of like show her strength, A, or B, book her like the beast that she is, and just let her destroy these girls. Nobody's gonna look at her. She could destroy Adam Cole if she wanted to. You really think I'm gonna be mad if she comes out and destroys Anna Jay in 2 minutes? No. So I love the debuts. I love seeing Athena. So happy for her. But this was not a good match.
I do have one more thing to kind of add to that, is adding a manager, Malcolm Bivens, Stonely Hathaway, whatever his name is. They have all these managers that don't add anything. They have, what's his face dressing up like Dracula and wearing, having the pitchfork and
Alex Abrahante.
Alex Abrahante. It's like, is that a salary worth paying? And you have all these other managers, Vicky Guerrero, Jake the Snake Roberts, who seem like they should be adding, but they're not really. And you have all these managers that really aren't in hand. You have no Bobby Heenans and no Paul Heymans, and you're adding more managers. And I'm a big fan of managers. I think they can really improve a wrestler's presentation, but they're not finding the ones that are really improving and taking a wrestler to the next level. I haven't seen one yet. Maybe Don Callis. I think Don Callis did help Kenny Omega, but that's probably it.
I completely agree. And hopefully Stokely is that guy to take Jade Cargill to the next level, even though she's already on such a high level. And everyone has always raved about his performance on the indie scene. It was very clear during his time on NXT TV that he poured his heart and soul into whatever act he was paired with. So hopefully now that he's with an established act like Jade Cargill in the baddie section, it only goes up from here. Kevin sends in a super chat. He says, in my humble opinion, Athena should have debuted on Dynamite as Thunder Rosa's new challenger, and the momentum for Statlander should continue as Cargill's next threat. I agree for the most part, but I do have some hesitation when it comes to debuting someone immediately as a title challenger. We saw what happened with Brian Cage going after Jon Moxley. Momentum at an all-time high, and then what happens?
Ruby Soho
loses. Ruby Soho. I saw her challenge Britt Baker for the women's title in New York City at Grand Slam. And then immediately after that, where does she go from here? It took her, half, 2/3 of a year to get that momentum back. And as we saw in this show, it didn't really go anywhere. So, I hope Athena, wherever they place her, there'll probably be a big 6-man tag that she'll compete in. But have her get some wins and earn that title shot eventually so that slow momentum builds up rather than having her peak at the beginning and then fumble on the way.
And to that point, I'm going to put this in the chat and to you guys. Who has really seen a big bump 6 months after jumping from WWE to AEW? There's so many people where you're like, oh, that person should jump to AEW. Keith Lee, obviously, was one. Just tons of names. But how many have really seen a difference from where they were to where they are now after 6 months? So,
Punk is the only one I can think of, and he was.
Punk was a main eventer in WWE.
Punk didn't jump. Punk didn't jump. I mean, what kind of 7-year jump is that?
Right. Well, I mean, like someone that went from the mid card to the main event.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that we'll have to keep our eyes on. But some people who actually
Moxley didn't jump.
No,
he
Moxley
let his contract expire, and he went on his own way. It's not like somebody that got released and AEW picked up. No, they haven't.
And he was WWE champion. He was in the main event picture. He was the top guy.
Yeah.
We do have a couple super chats I want to get to before we move on to our next match. Yeah. Sheed Black sends in another one who says, outside of MJF and Wardlow, only Keith Lee and Swerve versus Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs had a good storyline and build up. I mean, when you look at this whole card, they're probably one of the longer running storylines in terms of Team Taz versus Keith Lee and Swerve. And of course they got, brought into the tag team title picture, but I thought it worked for the most part. What did you guys think of the whole Keith Lee and Swerve Team Taz storyline? Issa, I'll go to you first.
I mean, it's been a great storyline, but overall, I thought that one of the attractions of AEW was going to be with doing 4 pay-per-views a year. We were going to see very well-built storylines going into these pay-per-views because you have months to build them up, and that's not the case. You're still adding matches. 2 days ago, they have no story to them. So I wish that would change a little bit, but I agree. I think MJF proves once again that he always has the best built feuds going into a pay-per-view, and I did. get a little bit into CM Punk and MJ and Hangman Page, but it was just they announced it on a Dynamite episode very randomly. Hangman wasn't even there, and then they saved it this last Wednesday, in my opinion, with that promo battle that they had. But outside of that, it wasn't really. It didn't feel like a big feud.
And Raj?
So I'm sorry. What exactly are we talking about? The Keith Lee Swerve match? That was later in the show, right?
Right, but outside of the tag title match and the MJF match, most of the matches on this card were very rushed storylines.
Yeah.
Low term build. How did you feel the same about that?
Oh, for sure. And the Keith Lee thing, the one thing that just blows my mind is that he was the gigantic surprise, right? That was the big hyped, huge name coming in, huge gigantic surprise, and he's not even in a really featured spot on the pay-per-view. Yeah. And look, I can't blame AEW for how people are positioned right now because they have such a gigantic roster. I can blame them for overhyping surprises. And I thought I just feel like they did it with Keith Lee and not so much with Swerve. Swerve, look, I think Keith Lee, Swerve, they're new. We'll see where they are in 6 months. But Swerve's in a better spot now than he was in NXT. We'll see.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see where they are in 6 months. But I thought as far as storytelling went with this pay-per-view, it felt very rushed. They just kind of figured it out in the last couple of weeks where they were going. Young Bucks and the Hardys, that should have been months, just announced a month ago, and you're just showing videotape of the Young Bucks dressed like the Hardys and all this stuff. It just feels like that was a gigantic storyline that kind of got condensed to their backstage, your Hardys cosplay and this and that, but it just feels like there was a gigantic storyline that got missed.
Yeah,
and, sorry, go ahead.
I completely echo those sentiments. We do have another super chat I want to get to before getting to our next match. Marie Johnson saying that Jade had an offer from WWE. She turned them down because she wants to spend time with her kid. Raj, is this something you can verify for me?
Yes, yeah. So this was developmental. They had given her a developmental deal, but she's going to get a different deal now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if she does get another offer from WWE, it would probably be straight to the main roster and something for a lot more money.
Guaranteed she'll get something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, moving on to our next match.
There are some names that are no-brainers, right? You look at the AEW roster and WWE is going to want these guys. Jade, Wardlow, MJF. It's just no-brainers.
Especially with how NXT is nowadays, none of them fit the NXT build. And honestly, even when NXT was black and gold NXT, all three of those acts you mentioned are all very main roster ready acts and kind of positioned for the WWE machine as well. 6 people that might not work in the current WWE machine. The House of Black and the Death Triangle. A little segue for you halfway through this podcast. House of Black defeating the Death Triangle by pinfall after the lights go out. And my brother goes to me, "Oh my God, is it going to be Bray Wyatt?" And he was like, "Who is this girl?" And I go, "Well, actually, this is something that's been building for quite some time." Julia Hart joins the House of Black, spits the black mist in Pac's eyes. My brother, who had only watched WWE before this, goes, "Is that Neville?" And I was like, "Yup." And his name is actually Pac, which I got a kick out of. Issa, I'll go to you first for this one. House of Black, Death Triangle, the feud that's been going on for what feels like 500 years. How did you feel about the culminating match of all 6 matches?
I knew they were going to put on a good match. Love the presentation of House of Black with the makeup. I love seeing all 3 of them. Same with Death Triangle. Even Pac wearing the mask. I really like how they came out looking like trios. Really made me look forward to this trios title. But this feud has been going on forever. They were in the buy-in of Revolution. It was a different combination, but they were in the buy-in of Revolution. So it's I know I just complained for feuds not being built long enough, but this one has been going on for a while. So I was just let them put on a really good match and let's move on from this. I don't get Pac anymore about the lights going out in AEW, no offense, but I really don't. I've learned my lesson. I have no expectations. But Julia Hart coming out, because I don't know if this is playing out on their YouTube shows. I do not watch the YouTube shows, and neither does half of their audience, according to the numbers. So this is something that they continue to play out there or not. Half of the people forgot that she got misted by Aleister Black months ago. So it probably made no sense to a lot of people, but I like the continuation of the story. We'll see what she adds to House of Black, but I'm ready for them to move on for the triangle. Match was good. Up to this point, my favorite match of the night.
Raj, before you give your thoughts, I did want to bring up some tweets he had about this match. You acknowledge the fact that it was like, from a pure wrestling standpoint, there was some stuff to be enjoyed. But you did mention something interesting that I did take. I agreed with what you said. Did anyone care about who actually won this match? Now, since you've had some time to settle on it, have your opinions changed, or do you still feel the same about just kind of some flippy indie wrestling?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the things when people, like, I used to be a fan back in the day, and I don't watch anymore. You cannot imagine how many people I tell the first thing they ask, when they're like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I run a wrestling site. And then they're like, "Oh, you make money off of that?" And it's like, yeah. Like, "Oh yeah, I used to watch that shit. I used to like Macho Man, and and the stuff that they liked, the reason that they liked it was the characters and the storylines. Now it's so much of the in-ring. Like, people care about the performance. And when I was watching this, I'm like, man, no one in this arena really cares who wins. House of Black are supposed to be the heels. You should be wanting them to lose. It's like when Jake the Snake and the Undertaker ruined the Macho Man's wedding. You're not chanting "This is awesome" with Macho Man and Jake the Snake. You want Macho Man to get his revenge. And that's gotten lost. And this match was one of those. And Julia Hart, the whole thing, it's just one of those shitty storylines where it's like no one cares. If it was a real TV show and you spent that long and that was the payoff, you would just get savaged by it, across the board. But it's wrestling.
To your point, Raj, there's a lot of matches in here that you have no clue who to root for and who the heel was supposed to be. This isn't the only case of this happening. There's a lot of matches tonight that I was like, who's supposed to be the heel here? Like, who am I supposed to root for if I'm just a casual fan watching with somebody else or something like that? And this is one of them. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I threw a lot out there.
I completely agree with both points. I'm a big fan of the House of Black. I think they have a lot to offer in AEW. I think they could be a future main event act if they ever want to put the belt on Aleister Black far down the line. Obviously, there is some stuff that has to get done beforehand, but I like the way these three work together. Brody King and Aleister Black, or Malachi Black, have had chemistry for a while. They obviously tag in PWG. And Buddy Matthews, man, there's just something about the way that guy moves in the ring. Like you said, Raj, do I know anything about his character? Zero, zilch, nada. I just like his moveset. And for Buddy Matthews, that's enough for me.
Seeing him wearing face paint and everything, it just feels like...
Face paint was forced. Yep.
Yeah, it just feels, again, it's like if Urkel was going to be a Cobra Kai. Like, it doesn't fit. You're just doing it to do it, but okay, whatever.
I will say I laughed at someone had a sign in the front row that said "Make Buddy get tattoos," and I was like,
I know, I always bitch about that. It's like, why is he so clean cut next to these two fully tattooed guys? Like, it drives me crazy.
Well, I mean, Buddy doesn't fit in with their character, so have him be like, I don't know, a bodyguard or something that is it's a part of them, but you're not acting like you're in the same blood, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. And stables do that all the time where they
like the NWO. Bischoff is not Hogan, Nash, and Hall, but he's part of the NWO. It's kind of like that kind of thing where
but they were in the same mental institution, Raj. Come on.
I know. What am I thinking?
Like as
Shame on you.
Who could forget? Of course. That's my modern wrestling brain kicking in. But let's move on down this card. Two matches I kind of want to combine together because they were kind of, they culminated in the same segment. Adam Cole beats Samoa Joe to win the men's edition of the Owen Hart Cup tournament, while Britt Baker, his +1, defeated Ruby Soho to win the women's edition of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. After both matches concluded, Baker and Cole got to the top of the ramp where Dr. Martha Hart came out, gave a really heartfelt speech, a lot of Owen chants. You could tell the crowd was getting pretty emotional, as well as Martha Hart herself. And then Baker and Cole accepted the trophy, as well as 2 special edition titles, which I believe had a very familiar design to them. I saw it going on Twitter and everything. A lot of people were very impressed with how the title belts looked themselves. Issa, I'll go to you first for this one. I am curious about your thoughts on Britt Baker specifically, because a lot of people are wondering if she's kind of getting booked like AEW Charlotte Flair, where, Charlotte wins the Rumble that one year. Charlotte wins, she beats Asuka at WrestleMania.
So?
She beats Ronda Rousey. Just to,
She's over.
She's
over. She's managed to do what the rest of the roster hasn't been able to do. Never bet against Britt Baker.
Fair enough.
It's one way that you can put her over without having her in a title picture, and you just have to go with it. I absolutely love Britt Baker. Britt Baker has it. She has that it factor. She can talk on the mic. There's a lot of women in their division that can't go on the mic the way Britt Baker can. She can command an entire arena. Look at that Rampage episode in Pittsburgh. The way that it's just, I love Britt Baker. I feel bad for Ruby Soho here, because as soon as they announced the finals, I was like, oh no, Ruby Soho's gonna lose to her again. I kind of knew, because this is a way to get Britt Baker a big win without having her in the title picture. Samoa Joe and Adam Cole, I still am mind blown at the fact that this was a first time match, because these guys feel like they would have crossed paths before. But because it was a first time match, I feel, and this is all me, I had higher expectations from what we got. It was a good match, don't get me wrong, but I was like, this is going to be match of the night for me. They're going to steal the show. Like, it's the first time they're facing off. Overall, I don't need another annoying couple, so I hope this doesn't turn into another Ty Conti and Sammy Guevara with the two of them winning. I'm happy that they won. I think they're a big deal in AEW. I think Adam Cole did also need a big win, and he's not involved in a title picture. So I'm not upset at the finish. I just hope it doesn't take it any further into this whole, oh my God, look at us, we're a second annoying couple in AEW.
Geez, I actually have a lot on that. I think Britt's awesome. I think Ruby Soho, I really like her, but she's overrated.
Shots fired.
Seriously, I mean, when people were like, "Oh, yeah, she needs to go to AEW," and then now she's here, and you see she's got a good entrance song. Some people like it. It's not my cup of tea, but outside of that, it's not like the fans are into her once the bell goes. I don't feel like her character is quite there. I think she's a great talent in the ring. She can work, she can go, but I don't think her character is worthy of a
I don't
match
know what
with
her
Britt
character
Baker.
is.
Yeah, I don't know.
What her
Tony
character
Storm
is.
should
I don't know
probably
what
have
she's
been.
supposed to be. Like this, I remember the video packages she was doing prior to coming to AEW on her social media were great. Like, the Lost One or whatever, and now she came to AEW, and I don't feel they relate. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, and I would tell Raj, to your point, when the crowd turned on her on Friday, that's when I knew Britt Baker was winning. I was like, even if the decision was for Ruby to win, as soon as I saw the crowd reaction to her not allowing Britt to speak, I was like, okay, that's it. They're gonna have Britt win.
Right. Yeah. And that's where we are. So look, I think she's great in the ring. I think she's super talented. I don't think she's a personality enough to be on the level of a Britt Baker on a pay-per-view. I think Britt Baker is special. I hated that they had her and Adam Cole be like, hey, we're having a good time posing for the statue. We won. Because I don't know if you watch Better Call Saul, but you're not going to have Lalo Salamanca at the end being like, hey, we're having fun. We're having fun here. It's still on the show.
Mm-hmm.
You're still a heel. You're still a bad guy. either you
Okay,
book
but you're
two
not a
baby
bad
faces
guy
to win.
around your loved one. Like, I'm a bitch to like 90% of people, but to my dog, I'm the biggest sweetheart. You know what I mean? There's those people that can get that side of you, or animals.
But so completely they're the opposite,
I
where
know.
her and Adam Cole are like, hey, oh, this is great, this is lovely.
Yes.
My biggest issue with it, though, it's not the fact that there are heels. It's that Britt Baker won her match cleanly, and Adam Cole, on the other hand, Bobby Fish interfered. Like, sure, he didn't directly toss in a weapon or he didn't pull the ref out of the ring, but he caused distractions. The intention was there to cheat from Adam Cole. And I know it's wrestling. Who cares?
I think Jeff Hardy should have won the men's Owen Hart tournament.
I am going to say, Liam, that you have to protect Samoa Joe. Like, Ruby Soho, no offense, has no character, nothing going on TV. Samoa Joe is a Ring of Honor TV champion. You cannot have him just lose just like that. Yeah. So I said if Adam Cole wins, it's not going to be clean, because I had chosen Samoa Joe because of the fact that he is at the Ring of Honor Once I saw him come out without the title, I was like, okay, he's not winning. And he wasn't wearing pink. Apparently, that was the secret code. But regardless, it's like you have to protect him somewhat, because he is a champion in your other brand right now, and you don't want to make him look like he can lose to this 90-pound guy just like that.
I think that's
no offense,
so the reason why I think Jeff Hardy should have won is because he actually wrestled Owen, and he could have given a speech about, he could have given firsthand experiences. If Adam Cole, they, as asshole-ish as it sounds, they should turn heel on Martha Hart. Granted, you're not going to say like Owen was a bum, but you're a heel. You got to do something. I don't know what you say, because Owen is so revered. I don't know how you do that, but Owen's the greatest of. Look, I was thinking of watching this tournament and how Owen was the one guy back in the day when that happened, the tragedy happened, and it was the worst day, professionally. Since then, I don't think I've ever had a wrestler pass away that meant that much as it did with Owen. But his name still brings a smile to my face. Whereas when I think of Eddie, automatically I think sadness, or Chris Benoit, obviously I think horror. So many other guys. It's just like Owen. It's happy thoughts that immediately come to mind. And I don't know. I forget what my point was. Cheers.
Cheers, of course. Well, either way, this is clearly something AEW is going to do for future years to come. And if this was the first edition, I think that there are ways to improve it, but at the same time, I think that the moments were still handled along the way, especially with pretty good care. And I loved hearing Martha Hart's speech. It clearly meant so much to her to see like the Owen chants and everything, and seeing Cole and Baker, with the titles and everything. Even if it was a kind of breaking character moment, I still thought overall it was a highlight on a show that will kind of largely be forgotten in the AEW pay-per-views.
So what if Adam Cole super kicked Martha? I'm making sure we get canceled here.
This is taking a turn. I was gonna say maybe they won because there was only one cup. Like, they had two belts, but there was only one cup. So they were like, if we put it in the same household, then it won't be an issue. That's my theory as of why Adam Cole and Britt Baker won.
But I think they're just gonna carve their names into it, like the NXT Dusty Rhodes Classic, and they'll just pass it down for years to come. But who knows?
So let's not super kick the lady. Like, she hasn't been on TV.
I agree.
Like,
Oj, you could super kick. If he was there.
Yeah. 1000%. Fuck that guy. But not Martha. Come on.
Yeah, you can't do Martha. Oj. Have you guys seen Oj?
Just
he looks just like Owen Hart. He looks just like his dad.
But jacked. Like, this dude is made for wrestling.
Him and what's his name? Chris Benoit's kid. He looks just like him as well. David.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, it would be so weird. It would be so eerie if those two decide to wrestle, because there's no way you're not gonna see their dads. If
It's funny when
you
I was
know,
talking
if they.
when I talked to David I talked to him a lot in person at Double or Nothing 2 years ago
Yeah.
in 2019, and it was just like, it was uncomfortable because it's like, oh shit, you look just like Chris.
I know.
Before we move on to our next match, we do have a couple more super chats I want to get to. Sheed Black, again, thank you so much for the super chats. I believe this is his third of the night. Outside of MJF, no true heels exist. Randy Orton has heel tendencies and still gets cheered, and I love Orton. I think he makes a decent point in terms of no true heels exist, but there are some.
No, Roman Reigns just made children cry on national television, on Fox. Thank you very much. Come on, acknowledge him.
But he is cool as shit. Like, he's
Yeah,
kind
he
of one
is.
of
Yeah,
those that is cool. He's not like Bully Ray
Still,
back in the day.
children were crying, Raj. You're a father. Come on.
My daughters are just like, oh, Roman Reigns is on, I'm watching. They love Roman Reigns.
Another here from Sheed Black. He says Jade versus DMD is coming down the road. I hope when we get to that point, Jade has a little bit more in-ring experience. Obviously, she's had, 31, 32 matches at this point, and she has, a year of television experience, but she feels more television ready in terms of being a presentation for TV, as opposed to being fully in-ring ready to have a 15, 20-minute back and forth classic style match. So I hope we get that match eventually, because I really don't know who would win. And then one more from Sheed Black. He says, salute, everyone is drinking and having a good time. Non-alcoholic seltzer.
We've been drinking. There was a super chat a long time ago. I think we might have missed it from Tornado, and I know Tornado is always in
Where's
here.
Tornado? Did we not get that?
Putting the Tornado thread up, but I believe he said that the Wizard appreciates the Tornado. So I'm just, I can't get it up in the screen, but I saw it. It was at the beginning of the show, and I know we missed it. I give a shout out to our friend Anthony Y, aka the Tornado.
I'll see if I can find it here. Here we go. Yes, the Wizard appreciates the Tornado way back at the very beginning. But of course, gotta show love to everyone. Another match on this card as we get down the very long match card. American Top Team versus Sammy Guevara, Frankie Kazarian, and Ty Conti. I know everyone's favorite match of the night, everyone's favorite storyline that everyone's just been fully invested in every single week on Dynamite. Hey, even Sammy, Frankie, and Ty all got on Twitter after this was over and said, thank God this is over. So it's very clear everyone wants to move on. American Top Team get the win. They are made up of TNT champion Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and the debuting Paige VanZant, someone who I remember had WWE's eye way back in the day, and now she's a little bit more established in the UFC world. Not as big of a crossover star as another American Top Team member like Jorge Masvidal, per se, or Junior Dos Santos, but still a recognizable figure in the MMA world. Issa, I'll go to you first. How did you feel about Paige VanZant's pro wrestling debut?
So when she first started getting physical, right? I couldn't wait for her to get tagged in, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't care about this match. It was added last minute. I was a little upset about having her in-ring debut not being hyped at all. So I'm watching this match just to see her get physical. When she first got in the ring, it felt very wrestling school 101. Oh, she hit a clothesline. She did this. She was hitting all the basic moves. I started becoming impressed when she became involved with Sammy Guevara. When she had that spot with Sammy Guevara, I was like, okay, I see where this is going. Is she there yet? No. Did they rush this? Yes. I think we could have put in a whole different storyline and wait a little bit longer to present her, but they did the right thing by putting her in this match where you can protect her. She doesn't have to be involved as much. I thought she looked great. I like her gear. I think the fact that nobody cared for this feud really hurt her in-ring debut. I wanted more for her, but the fact that we were so over the story and the people involved in it hurt her. But I thought she did a fine job for it being her first time and us not knowing what to expect and just over the story. I'm ready to move on. I need the TNT title to start being defended on this pay-per-view, and I need for Scorpio Sky to make that title great again. Because there was a time where I used to look forward to the TNT title matches more than anything, and that hasn't happened, if I'm being honest, since Miro dropped it.
Raj, how do you feel about Paige VanZant?
Me?
Yeah.
So I thought this was worst thing on the show up until this point. I thought it was. Look, I think Paige VanZant has superstar qualities. Like, she has the presence. You know, there are some things you just can't teach. Roman Reigns has that. You can't teach it. You look at him and it's just like, oh my God, that guy. Who is that guy? The airport test, whatever. I know people make fun of it, but you know, there are some people that have it, and they're the ones that end up being stars in general if they can also wrestle. Paige VanZant kind of has that. I think Jade Cargill, I mentioned earlier, she has that. But I thought this match was just god awful. I thought, you know, Paige VanZant, her first match, it should be a big deal. It should be going out like former UFC star, making her pay-per-view debut, her pro wrestling debut. It should have been a story, and it felt rushed. Like, oh shit, Paige VanZant's wrestling in this match. It kind of felt like that, and you know, again, this TNT title, it just feels like it's funny because Tony Khan, he got mad during one of these press junkets when someone mentioned the TNT title as a secondary title. And he's like, no, it's the same as the world title. It's like, no, it's fucking not. It's it's beyond a secondary title. It's not even a main event on most Dynamites, you know. It's lucky to be the main event of a Rampage. Yeah, it's just a worthless title. I feel like you're doing Paige's first match. And AEW fans, don't worry. It's going to get more positive after this. But I thought up until this point, this was the worst AEW pay-per-view that they had done up until this point.
Yeah. Actually, past this point as well, I didn't turn around for me until Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, same here.
I echo your sentiments, and I really feel like, especially with this match, they booked themselves into a corner, because you had another tweet I agreed with, Raj, on this one. Who are the heels? Who are the faces? Well, actually, we know
that's the one I was referring to.
We know the heels on one side, at least 2/3 of them, but then Kazarian halfway through the match, when he was kind of a heel leading up, embraces the babyface side, tells Sammy Guevara to screw off. But then he still competes, because obviously he would, per the stipulation. If he loses, or if Sammy Guevara or Ty Conti gets pinned, he loses future TNT title shots so long as Scorpio Sky is champion. So it's like, I get the logic of he's not going to fully turn on the team because he wants to protect the stipulation. But at the same time, him only doing a half measure felt so weird to me. And like, American Top Team, why is Dan Lambert supposed to get cheered? Scorpio Sky, after the match, and we had the backstage segment where Dante Martin confronted him, cut a very babyface promo complimenting Dante Martin before saying, well, I'm still going to beat you and you're going to get what's coming to you. But still, the blurred lines right now, it doesn't feel blurred lines intentionally. It doesn't feel like they're tweeners. It feels like they're heels, but they're kind of being molded into, oh, you're a heel, but you're feuding with heels who are more pure heels. So therefore, try to be a little bit of a face.
So Liam, you're saying I actually agreed with you on this tweet. What are some of the tweets that you didn't agree with?
Well, you just had some very emphatically like angry at the House of Black match that I was having a blast with.
Like what? Name one that you disagreed with. Let's hear it.
You said something about the House of Black match that it was like flippy nonsense, and I was like, well, I don't know. I like when Buddy Murphy does his flips.
No, I did not say that. I said when you're caring more about the flips as opposed to story.
Sure.
Yeah.
And well, when I say I agreed with this tweet specifically, it's not because I disagreed with other of your tweets, but that some of them I'm like, I'm 100% on the same page, while other ones I'm like, I might have a counter argument on the podcast.
I'm trying to keep my job, so I'm just gonna say.
I love if you disagree with me. I'm just curious if you do, where it is.
In the future, I'll actually bookmark them and not just mentally bookmark.
People in the chat too. You disagree with me? Let it known.
I didn't see your tweets tonight, Raj. Since I started doing watch-alongs, I don't get on Twitter because obviously I'm live, and that has actually changed my viewing experience, Liam, for the record, because I'm not watching it through social media's eyes. I'm just watching and giving my people on YouTube my point of view. But I will say sometimes you think you like something, and I get on Twitter and I'm like, nobody liked them. Maybe I don't like it as much as I thought I did. It changes everything if you don't watch it through social media's eyes. It really does.
It's a very good point. And also, too, when I pay for something, especially $50 for an AEW pay-per-view, I try to be as optimistic as possible because I don't want to feel like I just wasted my money. While with a Dynamite or a Rampage, I'm going to watch it a lot more, straight down the middle.
It's rare, I'll say this, that I've watched a wrestling pay-per-view where I felt like I was ripped off at the end. Hell in a Cell, where Bray Wyatt was disqualified and where they had the big giant hammer and all that shit. That's one. But overall,
you wanted your $10 back.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, AEW always delivers. It's always going to be worth your $50, in my opinion.
But that's the thing, though. I feel like past AEW pay-per-views, I've been like 100% yes. This also has replay value, which is awesome. I've watched All Out 2021 from start to finish probably 4 times by now. This is not exactly.
I was there live, and it's completely different to this. Full Gear as well. I was there for Full Gear. Mm-hmm. This one, I don't know that I would watch it from start to finish. Not at all, actually.
This is not one I can see myself putting on in the background. There are certain moments that I would like to skip to kind of relive them, but not a show that I can go start to finish. We have another super chat here from the Tornado. I want to get to it before it gets too lost in the shuffle. Esau, heart you. Maybe the Tornado will have to throw some stripes back on in 2 weeks on Raw if Roman shows. FYI, Tornado merch coming soon.
The threat level is at an all-time high.
We'll have to keep a lookout for Tornado merch, I guess. We moved down this card to a match that was very much just thrown in. A match that I think was kind of thrown in to buy them time just in case the finals went too long. And clearly they didn't need to be bought time because this pay-per-view wrapped at still like 12:45, an hour 15 after the Celtics game ended. That was Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin. And in something kind of surprising, Darby Allin lost. This is one of the AEW OGs that I feel like they always want to protect. No matter what happens with Darby, they still seem to give him pretty big wins. His TNT title reign is still probably my favorite individual AEW title reign in company history so far. And here he is losing to Kyle O'Reilly on pay-per-view, coming off of a loss to MJF at Full Gear and a loss to CM Punk at All Out.
And a loss to Jeff Hardy.
And a loss to Jeff Hardy on Dynamite. Exactly. There's a lot of wishy-washy stuff going on with Darby Allin's booking. But on the flip side of this, Kyle O'Reilly, they are clearly behind.
Is there a flip side to this, Liam?
Well, I'm trying to look at it off the
permission to speak freely.
Go for it, Raj. I want to hear
it. Yes, Raj.
How brutal can I get?
As brutal as you want. It's 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. This is Wrestling Inc. After Dark.
Everyone listening, make sure not to tell Kyle O'Reilly what I'm going to say.
Can I say my one optimistic thing first? It doesn't sound like a counter argument.
Go and be positive, Keith.
With Kyle O'Reilly going over Rey Fénix a couple weeks ago on Dynamite, and now him also going over Darby Allin, I appreciate that it doesn't feel like 50-50 booking, and it feels like they're slowly putting steam behind Kyle O'Reilly as a singles wrestler. That's all I'll say. Raj,
can I ask you how many promos are you like, oh my God, did you hear what Kyle O'Reilly said? Kyle O'Reilly has the charisma of a piece of cantaloupe. He
my dog's like tail is like this long, and there's more charisma on my dog's tail.
He just doesn't have it. He's good in the ring, whatever. But as far as someone that is going to get you interested in the storyline, again, everyone listening to this, please make sure not to say anything. This is between us. He's just got no charisma. He's just the worst. He's just one of those guys that when you're watching, it takes away from the match that he's in it. Like I'm like, I'd rather not be watching this, even though it's going to be a good athletic contest or whatever. But it's just like the interest level is sucked down. And I mean, just there was a few weeks ago where Kyle O'Reilly tried cutting a promo and sat down in the middle of the ring, fumbled his words. He's just not He's not entertaining. He's not a interesting character. There's a reason why Adam Cole was the guy. Adam Cole is the guy. He's awesome. Yeah. Anyway, I spit out a lot there. Back me up here, Isa, a little bit.
Yeah, I watched this match, and if I'm walking like by a room and I see this on TV, I would think it's my two teenage nephews just having a fun wrestling match like they do in the room. Like there was nothing believable about these guys. I'm sorry, Liam. I can see your heart breaking, but Kyle O'Reilly's not it. I watched Darby Allin matches for the crazy spot that I know at some point is coming in the match, and that's it. That's all Darby Allin has become to me. Maybe it's because of all these losses he's come from, and I haven't really been a big fan. And when you put him against Mr. No Charisma, it was the intermission in my stream. If I'm being honest with you, this was my intermission match.
You know what's hilarious? We were watching ET the other night, so my daughters had never. They watched it way back in the day, so I was trying to get them to watch it again. And there was one part where it's the most random insult where he's like yelling zero charisma. And he's like, Max Degenerate, zero charisma. And when she's saying zero charisma, I'm like, oh, Kyle O'Reilly.
Yeah. Yeah, we sarcastically used to call him Mr. Charisma on the Tuesday night podcast when we were covering him in NXT. But it doesn't help that this match had no story, Liam. Like like the whole thing that they try to tell is like, oh well, Kyle O'Reilly took out Sting, so now Darby must avenge Sting. Like, let's be real. You looked at your car and you said, oh shit, Darby's not in the car. We gotta throw him in there. That's what this was. There was no story to this. At no point was Sting like mentioned. It doesn't help that you have this character that can't really bring people over in a match that has zero storyline to it. This is another match that I could have done without tonight.
And Darby can't talk either, but he has 200% more charisma than Kyle O'Reilly.
Oh yeah.
I will say, I said this earlier in the podcast about some of the matches being thrown together as an excuse to get guys on this card. It very did clearly feel like, oh crap, we don't have Darby Allin on the pay-per-view. And, MJF has a match, Jungle Boy has a match, Sammy Guevara has a match. Here's one of the four pillars that, have been established since the get-go who doesn't have a match. One who we've arguably pushed, second most compared to MJF. So I understand the mentality of getting Darby on this card, but at the same time, there were places he could have gone in.
You should have just kept him off the match, because put him in the match just to win the match to lose, because that was the more shocking part to me, is that he lost after losing all of these one-on-one matches. If he's not in a trios or tag team match with Sting, he's not getting any wins unless we're going to build something from that now moving forward. That he's like realizing that he's not the same. Where has it gone? I don't have it anymore. If you don't build from there, then this wasn't necessary. I'd rather you leave him off and have him like do a backstage like what they did with Andrade. Why not do a video where he's blowing something up in his backyard like he always does, and include him in there somehow? Sorry.
And with this match, I completely forgot it existed. I forgot what happened. Darby won. I mean,
actually,
Colorado.
Towards the end, I thought they gave him a lot of time, and this is when the game was going towards the end. So I figured they were gonna try to like get him to feel it. But towards the end, when he started building towards the finish, I did think they did a good job. I was into the match. I will give them that.
I think that's fair. And we'll move on to our next match. I believe our fourth to last match, and then we also have a
yes, the women
as well. Of course, Thunder Rosa defending her title against Serena Deeb, successfully defending her title in a very back and forth technical brawl. Issa, you said that this match was one of the ones that turned around the pay-per-view for you. I'd love to just hear your sentiments.
I needed them to come out there and wrestle each other, and that's what they did. I was so happy watching this match. It was like they kept countering whatever the other one was throwing at the other. They just kept countering it, and they killed it for a poor build, a horribly booked champion on Thunder Rosa. Her taking out Serena Deeb, if you're following her story up to here, because I did think that Serena Deeb was the right call for challenging Thunder Rosa. It's just that they built it horribly. But the way that the match went, I was so proud of them. I was so happy. They freaking put on a technical wrestling match, and I thought both ladies looked great. Even Serena Deeb's in defeat. It was awesome to see Thunder Rosa finally get that moment to like, yeah, she's the champion and she can freaking go, and let her freaking go. It was great. I'm so proud of these women.
Raj?
Permission to speak freely.
Yeah, sure.
No, not.
I'm not
I
gonna
thought
back you
this
up
was
on
one of
this
the best
Tom.
matches on the show. But
Okay.
I do think that AEW positions women's matches in shitty spots on the show. I thought it was put in a spot where it was kind of like in the down position, you know, where people are coming down, you're waiting for the main event. I just felt like they're not putting the women's matches where they should be. And because they're not doing that, it's self-assuring them. It's like, oh, well, it didn't get over, so that's why we should keep doing this. And it's like, no, you keep putting it in the segment on Dynamite before the main event. You're positioning it to fail. And I don't know. I just felt like this was kind of positioned in that kind of way. But I thought Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa did an amazing job of getting the fans into it, because for a while it was quiet, like early on, and then they brought the
crowd.
fans into
Yeah,
it.
the crowd woke up.
They got them into it, and that's why I feel like they're so amazing, and they're total
I will
pros.
tell you one thing, Raj. To your point, as shitty as the spot was, because maybe of how I saw Kyle O'Reilly and Darby Allin, I see this match as the turnaround point of the pay-per-view for me. And for that, I'm happy. Pace-wise, it wasn't good, but when I'm looking at watching the pay-per-view overall, this is when I was like, okay, I'm having fun now. Let's do this.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought this match was really good, and I thought they got the crowd at the end. They did an amazing job. They're pros. They know how to get them. I did make a little joke about the polka dots. I don't know if you've seen Suicide Squad, but
of course,
the polka dot guy.
Yeah, polka dot man.
Yeah, but outside of that, I always like to get myself in trouble, but it was awesome. I thought this was the turning, as Issa said, this was the turning point of the pay-per-view.
So proud of
I thought this pay-per-view up until this match kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the turning point sentiments. I feel like after this, the pay-per-view really kicked into another level. It really resurrected the momentum, which is kind of crazy too, because the crowd was alive from start to finish. Sure, there were some lulls every now and then during matches, but they still got hype for every single match. So I think the MVP of tonight has to go out to that Las Vegas crowd. But we move on to a backstage segment where usually I won't highlight the backstage segments on these pay-per-view recaps, but this one was pretty big. Andrade was at a table. There was no crowd noise during this. We got to hear the pop after the fact. But he was mentioning how the AFO, he doesn't like the name and he thinks they're all losers. And he actually has a new business partner. And I was wondering for a second, because he recently just got married, it's like, is this going to be Ric Flair? Is Ric Flair going to debut in AEW in a backstage segment?
Good point.
And then when he mentioned the fact of he's familiar with this guy, he's a great wrestler all around the world, I go, well, yeah, Ric Flair, his last match is coming up after all. No, I'm kidding. I obviously went to the Rush mentality. Roosh, of course. And that's who eventually entered. A very sharp-dressed man, great sunglasses, great beard trim on Roosh as well. And we got to hear the pop after the fact. They shook hands. You know, they were on screen together for a good 15 seconds. The promo ended, and you could still hear the crowd having some applause. So I think this is a force to be reckoned with. And I think this is a much needed shot of adrenaline for Andrade, because you talk about guys who come into AEW from WWE hoping for their careers to be resurrected. Andrade has been lower mid-card for his entire AEW run. He had the match with Cody that obviously had the main event spotlight, but the AFO, like you said, a bunch of losers. Like, that's a faction that literally never wins. So I'm glad he's now pivoted, and hopefully him and Roosh go after the tag titles. Issa, how did you feel about Roosh's AEW debut?
No clue who Roosh is until now. I just now learned his name thanks to you, Liam. But the way you hyped him up, I'm sure he's going to be a great pairing with Andrade.
Raj?
Sorry, that crowd is just not for everyone. Not everybody watches that, and they need to do a better job of presenting these characters.
Permission to speak freely.
Oh.
Of course. I want to hear it all.
All right. Roosh, I think he's very talented. Obviously, he's great. But you know what difference this is going to make on ratings, attendance, popularity? 0%. 0%. And granted, that doesn't mean they don't bring him in, or he's a hell of a hand. He's a talent. The thing that it got me thinking about more was, what is this ROH thing? What are they doing with this? Like, what the fuck is the point of having ROH? Seriously, like, seriously, what is the point? You're not WWE yet, so yes, if you're making billions of dollars a year and you can open other leagues, but right now you should be promoting AEW. That should be the focus. Not like, okay, now we have AEW and we want to pitch this ROH show that 600 people used to watch, and we want you to pay for money for that. I mean, what is the plan here?
I will say, with Forbidden Door coming, I can see why they would pull a move such as this, because you have to start promoting Forbidden Door. I don't know if Rush qualifies as Forbidden Door or not, but maybe this is the reason. This is the reason why, and it might not be as related to Ring of Honor as we think. Rush, it might just be going into Forbidden Door and the matches that we're gonna start seeing, because you do have 3 weeks to build Forbidden Door, where AEW is used to having months in advance to build these pay-per-views.
So you do mention Forbidden Door. Rush in AAA, I believe, or CMLL, him and Andrade, when he was known as La Sombra and wore the mask, are founding members of Los Ingobernables. And obviously...
Oh, no, they are.
Yeah, Los Ingobernables de Japón.
Look back at Charlotte's old honeymoon pics, and Rush is always there photobombing.
Him and Andrade are like longtime friends. Obviously, they were in a faction together, and then the Japanese offshoot, LIJ, which was headed up by Tetsuya Naito, is a big part of New Japan. So I'm sure they're going to have a pretty big role in the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. But I will say, to both of your credits on the difference that Rush makes, this was the first AEW pay-per-view where I was bothered by every single new signing debut, because I'm like, this feels so gimmicky at this point. Before, it was like, here we go, it's Bryan Danielson. Oh my God, Adam Cole. I can't wait to see how they factor into storylines. And now it's like there's an expectancy, however you say that word, for every pay-per-view to have. I saw tweets that were like, who are going to be the surprise debuts at the AEW pay-per-view?
This is all on Tony Khan, Liam. Like, Tony Khan created that narrative for himself that we should be expecting these things, and that's what he educated his fans to believe.
And on top of that, too, like you said there, Issa, when we were talking about the Forbidden Door, someone was going to cross through the Forbidden Door, and that was originally Keith Lee. And then he felt pressured into, well, technically, because he's a free agent, he's not crossing the Forbidden Door. Who can we get? Oh, that's right. Jay White is in the States.
Which was a horrible debut for Jay White, just to force him in there. That was a horrible day. I still get upset at Jay White's actual AEW debut.
And we hear commentary forcing the line of Jay White has walked through the Forbidden Door, just like Tony Khan promised. Like, that is something that really does bother me. The presentation of Athena, I thought, was really weirdly done. We talked about it earlier.
That's terrible.
Same thing with Stokely Hathaway, and same thing here with Rush. I appreciate that this is at least taking Andrade in a better direction.
Right. And it makes sense because they worked together in the past.
Exactly. That's the positive of this. But at the same time, it's just like, how many more debuts can we have? Like, the card, the roster is so bloated at this point that these guys, like, even if they end up in a tag title match, it's going to be with 3 other teams. They're probably not going to walk away on top. And like, it's just, there's too many guys right now. We got to focus on who's on the roster.
So now we're getting to the meat of the matter, right?
Yes.
So
it's my favorite match of the night. We're about to talk about my favorite match.
We're getting the jazz.
That's right. The all white. The what are those hats called again? Scally caps.
I'm out of wine.
See, we both need a refill. There, Issa. Yeah, they look like little penis heads with the things.
Fall back to All In, way back Joey Ryan and that whole shindig at
No,
I don't
please.
think we can say his name.
Never mind. Forget
Let's not get demonetized here, please.
Anyways, Jericho Appreciation Society end up winning Anarchy in the arena. This all culminated towards the end when Eddie Kingston walked out from backstage covered in blood and also holding a canister of gasoline, and he doused Chris Jericho in it, threatening to light him on fire. Shout out The Fiend and Randy Orton, that feud. I'm sure that's where he got the inspiration from. And that's where him and Danielson eventually came to blows, which kind of very much tilted the momentum in the JAS's favor. And it ended with Bryan Danielson passing out to a dual submission from Jake Hager and Chris Jericho. Issa, you said this was your favorite match of the night. Please tell me some of your favorite spots.
I mean, what? I loved everything about this. I love the music. I know Rush was over it. I love the music. I love that the way that they did the camera cuts were going to a different action spot. Like, it wasn't random camera cuts. Every time you cut, you were going to a different spot in a different side of the arena to a different person. It did slow down at one point towards the middle, but it didn't matter. Even when it felt like it was slowing down, it just felt like controlled chaos is the best way to describe what I saw here. Like, there was blood everywhere. Everybody was doing something ridiculous. Santana and Ortiz double thing that they did off the ladder onto the tables. Love that spot. I really like the finish. I cannot believe that they had Bryan. Like, I didn't want Bryan to be the one losing here, but I don't feel like he lost. You had him in the walls of Jericho at the same time as Hager is choking him. Like, what else is this guy supposed to do? The fire. I love the fact that the conflict between Eddie Kingston and Bryan did interfere in how the match went, because I did expect that to happen. They've been teasing that they don't like each other for a long time. Even in the promo before the match, Bryan said, I like Jericho more than I like Eddie Kingston. So, I overall thought this was very well done. I didn't know how they were going to do this because of not being able to pre-tape it, but I overall thought it was very well done. I do wonder what the experience of somebody watching it live has to be like, because you have to be watching it on the screen. There was too much going on. The spots were in complete different spots. So maybe watching it live might not be as enjoyable as they made it for us at home. I do wonder that.
Permission to speak freely?
Of course.
Always.
So, I thought this match was really good. I thought it turned things around. I did think it was clunky at times, but I thought this was the match that changed things around. Issa, to your point, not knowing, where shit was happening. If you're watching live, it's like, Am I looking at the stands? Am I looking in the ring? Who cares? But who cares? That's all minor stuff. I thought this was really fun stuff. That was really good. Bryan Danielson taking the pin. He's one of the biggest stars from WWE. He main evented last year's WrestleMania. He won one match on pay-per-view since he's been back in AEW. He beat Miro. That's it. He's lost every time since. Right? Am I wrong in that? Or
he had the no contest. Are we talking about Bryan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the no contest with Kenny Omega, then a no contest with Hangman, then Hangman beat him.
And he
but
lost
won a bunch of one-on-one matches. Like, he just wrestled on Rampage again. No, not on pay-per-view, no.
Yeah. I mean, like the big matches.
Right.
And now he's in a tag match in the middle of the show, and he's the one taking the loss. I just feel like he's not being utilized to the best of his box office.
He's one of the best things they have in that roster right now, and he feels wasted. So does Mox. If we're speaking freely. I mean, I love that they put them together, but
and not everyone could be at the top at the same time. I mean, CM Punk, this was his night, and I totally agree with that. But Danielson shouldn't be wasted as a guy losing in a tag feud, in my opinion. Like, the one taking
It
a
was a
fall
good finish.
in a random
If you're
tag.
gonna have him lose, it was like you can get out of this. But at the same time, you have what, 4 other partners, and nobody could come in and break
Eddie
up this
Kingston
hold,
could have taken the fall. Anyone, and
or break the submissions and keep going until somebody else takes the loss.
right,
You know.
yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
I will say,
Shout out-
to give some optimism, if I'm allowed, AEW
Permission to speak freely.
permission to speak freely. Exactly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but AEW doesn't often do the pass out submission, right? Like that's something WWE abuses. Like so many guys who are not at that level passed out from submissions. The one I always remember, Money in the Bank 2014, Big E passed out to Rusev's Accolade. And Big E was just not at that level. Nowadays, I can see why. But in 2014, he was not on that level. It was a nothing match for the U.S. Championship with like a week of build. And I was like, that just makes that finish weaker by comparison.
Yeah.
AEW, I feel like we never really see count out victories. We never really see a ton of DQs. And we never really see a lot of pass out finishes. It made it feel a little bit more to me, which I appreciated. But at the same time, I do agree. Bryan Danielson, even just being in this match, let alone, being the one who lost the match, felt very off to me because, like you said, Raj, this is the guy who main evented WrestleMania last year. This is the guy who came into AEW guns blazing, going straight for Kenny Omega, and goes to a 30-minute time limit draw, which was like the second one they had ever done in company history. And then from there, rides that momentum to a title match with Hangman Adam Page. And I like, the whole pairing with Moxley. I like the Blackpool Combat Club, but it does feel lesser than. I don't like the idea of Bryan Danielson feeling like just another guy on the roster. Like he's special. He's a big deal. There's a reason why he closed All Out, which was the pay-per-view that had CM Punk's return to wrestling on it. And the last thing fans saw was Bryan Danielson's AEW debut. And
Adam Cole, and look where they're at now. So.
Well, hey, Adam Cole at least got a victory, so there's that.
Yeah, I guess. Wait, permission to speak very biased right now.
Sure. Okay.
I have to send all of my heart to Ortiz coming out with a Puerto Rican flag, face painted on his face. I screamed. Sorry. I always love seeing that Puerto Rican flag.
Who
Ortiz, Santana had a bandana with the Puerto Rican flag, but Ortiz had his whole face painted in the flag, and it was just a beautiful sight to see.
Nice. Very cool.
Well,
representation is important.
I never see the Indian flag.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. So when you do see, but Raj, you get it, how important representation is. And I know that a lot of people are going to be like, okay, cool face paint. No. To some people, that meant everything. That might have made my entire night,
Right. No, for sure. I was kidding when I said that, but yeah.
No, because there needs to be more representation of everything, not just, certain things.
You want to know what's funny? We can take a little detour here. But back in the day, I remember when I was a kid, my parents loved Gandhi, the movie Gandhi. I cannot stand that movie. I was like, it beat E.T. over, for best picture. I was like, that movie sucked. But then I was like, oh my God, we finally got an Indian actor with Short Circuit.
Yeah.
It was like, we got this scientist guy. We finally got an Indian guy that's like in Short Circuit 2. He was like the main guy. And it turned out he was a white dude. He was a white dude playing an Indian guy in brown face. Fisher Stevens, and he's in Succession. I think he's a great actor. I'm not faulting him at all. But I forget what the
that kind of hurts the heart, huh?
It was like it was one of those whatever.
No, it's what you said. Representation absolutely does matter, and I do love when wrestlers rock their colors, their flags, and all that. Ty Conti coming out for her title match with Britt Baker, I believe, at either Full Gear or All Out. She had the Brazilian face paint and everything. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool. And I
was thinking about that during the Thunder Rosa match because it was a fan in the front row holding that Mexican flag, and I was like, I know that she has to look over, and it has to mean so much to her. Like it's everything.
It's special for sure. Whenever Conor McGregor dons the Ireland flag on a UFC pay-per-view, at least back in the day, that got a pop out of my family, who all come from Ireland on my dad's side. But
That's awesome.
moving on with this pay-per-view, we have 2 more matches left, and they're both title matches. And one we'll start with the tag title match: Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus retaining their titles over Team Taz, represented by Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks, and Swerve in Our Glory, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. Raj, I'll go to you first with this one. How did we feel about Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus holding on to their AEW tag titles?
Permission to speak freely.
Please do.
I think
I will.
Luchasaurus is one of the dumbest gimmicks. Like it's we're beyond it now. Like when he's doing the dinosaur shit, when he's talking it, it's like, oh my god, come on, I think we're beyond this now. It was fine when AEW was a lot of indies coming in, and we're letting the indies, develop a voice. But now it's just like, it's sad, right?
I mean, in terms of the tag team dynamic, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus feel like a tag team. That's what I said when I was predicting some of these matches, because they've been together for so long and their journey towards the tag titles was pretty storied. I really wanted them to retain here because Team Taz, even though Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks are together in a faction, they feel kind of thrown together. And then on the other hand, too, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland feel very thrown together to me. They feel like all solo individual wrestlers being put into a tag team to give them a spot on the card. That's why I was happy to see Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus retain. Their reign is getting stale to me, but I don't think they should play hot potato with these titles.
Isa, are you for the dinosaur thing?
No, not at all. Not at all. I haven't done anything for me in a long time now. I was there for the build up to them becoming tag team champions, but it just feels like there's so many other competitive, like FTR was not in this freaking pay-per-view. Okay, like there is so much better tag teams, even in this match. Now, Keith Lee and Swerve, I like them, don't get me wrong, but they do feel thrown together very last second. Now, Team Taz, that's what I was rooting for tonight. So maybe I'm a little salty here because I really thought that this was going to be the title that changed hands tonight. I don't feel that Jurassic Express have evolved any since like AEW Day One as characters. And outside of adding Christian replacing Marco Stunt, there's nothing there to them new. There's nothing that I would tell you, oh yeah, but they're doing this now. They weren't doing this back then. No, there isn't. And it's getting old. Like you said, Liam, it's getting stale and I'm ready to move on from this. I was really hoping for a big Team Taz win here, but I didn't get that.
You have all these managers that aren't doing anything, but I think you have Jungle Jack Perry turns heel. He's just cocky, arrogant heel. He would play that. I think could see him playing that to the nines. And having Taz or someone as a manager, I think he could be Kurt Angle. I could see Jungle Boy being a huge star. With some guy acting like a dinosaur, it's like it's not even cute anymore. It's like we're playing along with this.
Yeah, I do think Jungle Boy has a very high ceiling as a singles wrestler, but one thing he needs to go by Jack Perry. I don't think AEW champion Jungle Boy just seems a little goofy to me. He can be the Jungle Boy.
Jack Perry is a name like that. Feels like a superstar name.
Yeah. So I'm behind Jungle Boy as a singles wrestler. So I think, whenever this tag title run does come to an end, maybe we get to see him chase the TNT title.
Did you ever watch Luke Perry?
Yes, in Shameless, right?
Okay, maybe we're a little bit older than you.
90210?
Yes, 90210.
I know he was in Shameless. That's like his most recent project before he passed.
No, I think
okay, Liam, we get it. You're young. Let's move on.
You're a baby. But what was that? No, it was the Archie show. What was the Archie show? Luke Perry was the dad on that.
Wait, I know what you're talking about. Too.
Someone in the chat.
Someone in the chat will remind us for sure. But we do have a main event to get to. If you guys are
It's
ready.
time to pour a shot. I'm pouring a shot.
But we digress.
Yeah.
CM Punk versus Hangman Adam
In the
Page.
chat, what was that show?
Yeah. Someone hit us up before we eventually get to the main event match. But I'll run down what happened itself as Issa gets out the Malibu.
Riverdale. Thank
There we
you,
go.
Matthew.
That's what it was. Maybe it wasn't Shameless. Why do I feel like he was in Shameless? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Yep. Okay.
It's
A whole bunch of
2:30 a.m. for us, Liam. So it's okay.
That's probably what it is, if we're being completely honest. Let's get to the main event, though. CM Punk versus Hangman Adam Page in a pretty back and forth match that did have some stumbles along the way. Punk did get booed when he kind of botched the buckshot lariat. He landed on his feet, but not as smoothly as Hangman would have done it. And then because he still got to his feet and hit the clothesline, the crowd did boo a bit, but eventually the ref went down. I was wondering if this was going to be a Punk heel turn, but we got the classic Hangman teasing using the title, decides not to, and ultimately deciding to stay a pure babyface cost him the match. He had an opportunity. He didn't take it. The referee got back up. Punk hit the GTS. 1, 2, 3, and we have a new AEW World Champion. I believe our 5th World Champion in AEW history, which is pretty incredible considering, we're coming up on 3 years of the title's existence, and we've only had 5 different champions, and it's CM Punk, one of probably their most mainstream names to hold the title outside of Chris Jericho. I mean, John Moxley is up there, but people didn't know the name John Moxley as well as they knew Dean Ambrose. CM Punk, main event attraction, and here we are, him holding the big AEW gold. Raj, how do you feel about CM Punk being AEW champion? You sent out a tweet, mentally bookmarked it. How crazy is this an idea to conceive 1 year ago today?
Right.
Yeah. Permission to speak freely.
Of course.
Yeah.
I thought I tweeted this as well. When Punk was in the ring, he had that look like, I'm sorry that, I can't believe I'm giving this to you. I can't believe it, but you could tell he was overwhelmed by passing of the guard. Like he knew he was passing the guard. Actually, not really passing the guard, but taking whatever you call it. But you could tell he knew he was winning tonight, and he felt overwhelmed with Hangman and whatever. But I tweeted, I was like, "Oh, Punk's winning tonight." You could tell he feels bad for beating Hangman Page. Again, permission to speak freely. AEW has not created a superstar that's on the level of someone that's from WWE or Kenny Omega, who's from New Japan. They haven't. Hangman Page is not even close to CM Punk or anyone else. Hangman Page has never felt like a difference maker during his time as champion. I think he's done everything he could, but he always felt like, and this was something I said a few weeks ago on the Monday Night podcast, he always felt like he was the Batman, where the villain was always more interesting, and he was kind of the foil to the villain, and he just was never the star. I don't see him being the personality that's going to be the guy that's the star. We'll see.
I think that's fair. At times during Hangman's reign, it felt inauthentic, which is weird. Like especially when he came out of the tunnel, mean mugging and everything on his way to the ring, it just didn't feel real to me. I don't know why. I think AEW might have
anxious. It's not your anxious millennial cowboy at all.
Exactly. Like the chase was so much better than the destination for Hangman. His story against Kenny Omega is still one of my favorites told.
He can't carry a feud. He has to be the foil of the feud, right?
I think so. And especially with this Punk feud, even though it was very recently built, it did have my attention way more than like his program with Lance Archer per se that was done on TV or Adam Cole, because Punk was a guy who I felt like could carry the promos in the ring and he could have some rebuttals, but he never felt like he was in the driver's seat of this feud. And I think this is an appropriate time to have a title change. Issa, how do you feel about CM Punk being AEW World Champion?
I have some moments when CM Punk comes out and I feel like I'm in some weird multiverse. Like, it still doesn't feel real to me that CM Punk is back wrestling. I was a big fan of Hangman and the Chase. I was there in full gear. It's one of those moments that you see it live and you're like, I'm never gonna forget this. Like, it feels so good to see him finally become the champion. While I'm not fully underwhelmed with his reign, I feel like the character that we fell in love with didn't come out until last Wednesday. And maybe that was a little too late of an effort to bring that character that we fell in love with back. I'm not opposed to CM Punk winning here. It's just something that, like what Raj tweeted, if you would have told me this a year, 2 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. Not only that he will be wrestling, but that he will be a world champion again. Like, I'm sorry, maybe it's because it's almost 3 a.m., but I'm still like, to me, every time that this happens. It's the same when Cody wrestles in WWE. I could see it every week, and I'm still like, what am I watching here, you know? I thought it was a beautiful moment. I love the storytelling in the match with the Hangman hesitating to do what he needed to do is what cost him the match. That to me was perfection. And also shout out to AEW because you could have handed CM Punk the title back in August when he came back. And I don't think that anybody would have done anything about it. So the fact that they waited and built him up to a point where he feels like a deserving, champion. And on top of that, I love CM Punk's demeanor through this whole feud where he was just like, bro, this is business to me. I'm getting a title shot and I'm going to win it. And that's all there is to it. I thought this was a beautifully told story. We'll see where it goes. I'm very curious about what they do with Hangman after what we saw from his character tonight.
Yeah, and I will say to that point too about the natural progression of CM Punk as a contender. That's one of the beauties, I feel like, of the ranking system. It hasn't been perfect. There have been guys who clearly are undefeated, they deserve title shots, and then guys like Lance Archer just returned out of nowhere and they're getting a title shot.
Or Dante. I think Dante got a match in there where he wasn't even in the top 5. I'm like, okay.
Very, very random. And it feels like he's always been teetering around the mid-card title feud for so long. But Punk, it just kind of got to a point where he even said, like, I've been racking up wins. I've been climbing the leaderboard. And now I get a title shot. That's just kind of how it works. And that's why I love the same thing happened with Bryan Danielson. He had to win the Eliminator tournament to get the title shot. When he faced Kenny Omega, it was non-title. I appreciate stuff like that so much because even though, Issa, like you said, people probably wouldn't have been too upset if Punk came in and won the title straight away, you would get the crowd saying, well, now, AEW's pivoting long-term storyline plans with Hangman to get the belt on a WWE guy. The fact that he now feels more like, not fully like an AEW guy, but at this point, he's got an AEW vibe to this current iteration of CM Punk, and now he's AEW champion. I appreciate that too. And the full circleness. When I first started watching pro wrestling, it was October 2011, and it was leading up to Punk beating Alberto Del Rio for the WWE title at Survivor Series 2011. And that was such an awesome moment. And like to see him back with a world title now, crazy, like full circleness for me, and seeing like the emotion in his face too. When he's like,
it was so amazing. Mm-hmm.
Loved that. Love when you can tell that the moment means more, not just within storylines, but for the person.
He has to. I mean, this guy had technically kind of sort of gave up on this. The one thing that we know he's really, really good at and he should not be doing. I mean, it's if you want to get deep into it, it's a beautiful moment.
I agree. I do believe it was a beautiful moment. Raj, I feel like we got one last permission to speak freely on your mind.
Uh-oh.
I think the match wasn't that great. I thought it was.
I agree.
Not the best thing in the night. Agree.
Yeah. And I think I don't know. Just something was missing with the whole buildup. With
agreed. They announced it very lackluster.
It never felt like a dream match or even close. Like
I don't think you're wrong. I thought they fully reeled me in and got me on board Wednesday with that face-off between the two of them because I thought Hangman did an excellent job in his promo, and then I also love CM Punk saying, "Why are you taking this?"
Though I gotta ask you, Issa. Like when I heard it, I was like, "What?" He's the boys aren't with you. It's like, okay, what? But what? If he mentioned
Right,
Colt
but
Cabana or something, then I was like, oh shit, yes.
no, I feel like because he said I'm gonna do whatever it takes, I'm gonna defend the AEW title from you. It felt like he remembered how hard he had to fight to get this title, that it was gonna take a lot from CM Punk to get that off of him. Because technically speaking, Hangman Page busted his ass for years to get to this point. I would assume that he would be willing, which is why I hated that he hesitated. And in a way, I'm glad that that's what cost him the match.
Sure,
You
but-
waited years for this. You should have never hesitated. So on Wednesday, I saw the guy remembering what he had to go through to become champion.
But when he's saying like I'm defending this from you, shouldn't there be a reasoning what that means? Like what
Well,
does that mean?
I think it's just more about like when Punk was champion in WWE.
And Liam, we're kind of now you're saying we're kind of coming up with our
Right.
storyline
own-
reason.
You're right. You're right. Like I am filling in the gaps,
Right.
and that is a bit of an excuse. And to the non-diehard fans who don't really know what that means, and you can't show footage from WWE in your promo.
I
package.
didn't even go there, Liam. So I went back to Eddie Kingston's promo because Eddie Kingston made a lot of references about nobody in the back liking CM Punk. So when Hangman Page said that, I took it back as a continuation of, oh, maybe Eddie Kingston was not capping us in the fact that nobody in the back likes it. That's where I took it.
And two, I mentioned that you can't show WWE footage in the promo package. What you can show is Ring of Honor footage. And remember the whole, when he took like the ROH title hostage, when he said he was going to leave for WWE, there's something you could directly pull from and say, you know, if you're going to call your WWE career like not canon in your career, because he did mention in his return promo, August 13th, 2005, I left pro wrestling. August 20th, 2021, I'm back. If you're going to look at it like that, you can go back to his previous world title reign, which in that chronology is Ring of Honor, and he had the biggest power in the company, and he took the company in his own like diabolical direction. So you could have steered the feud in that direction if you wanted to. I feel like if they had more weeks to build, that's an idea that probably would have clicked backstage. But this was something that Hangman just kind of came up with towards the end. And you know, I think it added a nice layer, but like you said, Raj, it was up to us to fill in the gaps of what that meant.
I got a question for you.
Of course.
Miseria Cantare. Would you know that as soon as it hit?
No.
Miseria
No.
Cantare. That's CM Punk's original ROH thing.
Oh wait, no, the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I was trying to think of a wrestler. I do know it's by AFI.
I don't know it. Even when he came out to that song, it took me a second to click it together, honestly.
And did it. I got so much shit for not knowing that.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Involving Ring of Honor storylines is gonna lose a lot of people that don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
I think that's a fair point, and it
Good
is
night, my friends.
I did want to get to one super chat before we officially wrap this up because people said it was a good question. Marie Johnson, thank you again for supporting the stream all night long. She says, I am a fan of Orange Cassidy. Where has he been? If I'm not mistaken, he's injured. Last I saw him on Dynamite, he had a sling. So I think that's pretty simple. But hey, we're coming up on 2 hours here after a 5-hour show. So I think it is time
wrap it up.
to wrap it up. Before we officially wrap, Raj, I do want to get your overall thoughts on Double or Nothing. Would you call this pay-per-view a letdown, or did you feel like you got your money's worth?
Oh, that was fun. I thought it was the worst. Not the worst sounds bad, but I didn't think it was as good as their other pay-per-views. But I thought it was a fun show overall. But the weakest of their pay-per-views.
That's fair. Issa, overall thoughts?
There was a lot of this that was filler and I could have done without. Did I have fun? Yes. Was there matches that I enjoyed? Yeah. If I take it back, last year's Double or Nothing, I could watch it from start to finish again. Not this one.
So Issa, 1 to 10. What do you got?
7.
I think I'll go I think I'll go 7 as well, but more of a 3.5 out of 5. That feels
No,
more.
this is from someone that left All Out at a 15 out of 10.
Mhm.
So it's come down a little bit in my book when it comes to AEW.
I'm gonna give 7.5.
Okay.
Ooh, you're
No,
being generous.
I'll go 7.25.
Okay. 7.25. There we go. I love the decimal scores. Well, hey, that's been the Wrestling Inc. podcast post AEW Dynamite edition, or AEW Double or Nothing. Forgive me, I'm tired. It's 3 a.m.
It's
where I'm at.
late.
Thank you all for joining us. To find Raj Giri on socials, it's right there below. Raj Giri, or not Raj Giri _303. It's at the Raj Giri.
Yeah.
You've got the new handle now, the official, the
No.
Raj Giri.
Ignore
The
this.
Rush Giri.
Find him on all socials for all wrestling hot takes, as well as Issa on socials at NYC Demon Diva. I believe that's D number
one
VA.
Yeah, on Twitter.
Perfect. And also on Twitch.
No, you guys can find me on YouTube, NYC Demon Diva, the normal way. Go subscribe. We're almost at 20,000. Please subscribe.
Awesome.
Nice.
Let's get Issa to 20K. You can find me on social media at Liam T. Crowley. Thank you again so much for staying up to the witching hours with us on this post Double or Nothing podcast. We'll see you next time.